The Louisiana sun was already slipping low, casting long golden shadows over the dusty roads of a forgotten southern town. A gray bus hissed to a stop. Eddie Palmer, 35, stepped off, jeans stiff from travel, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. His face was sharp, quiet, worn like a man who'd been through things you don't talk about. 12 years. That's how long it had been. 12 years locked away. Now, he was home. On the porch stood Vivian Palmer, his grandmother, arms crossed, eyes soft. "Oh my lord," she breathed. He didn't smile, not yet. But she did. Wide and warm. "Well, don't just stand there, boy. Come inside before the gumbo burns." He stepped onto the porch. She pulled him into a hug like she was afraid to let go. Inside, the house smelled the same. Coffee, cinnamon, dust and old wood. His room? Exactly as he left it. Posters still on the wall. A high school football trophy still on the shelf. Frozen in time. Out the window, he noticed a rundown trailer in the neighboring yard. A tired woman, Shelley, stumbled out, yelling into her phone. A little boy trailed behind her, dragging a pink backpack, eyes wide and distant. Vivian caught him watching. "That's Shelley and her boy. Sam. Don't mind her, she's got problems. I would have asked them to leave long ago if it weren't for that child." That night, over dinner, the lights flickered soft over the kitchen table. Vivian served red beans and rice like nothing had changed. But something had. She looked Eddie dead in the eye. "You gonna need to get a job. You hear me? I know it won't be easy with your record, but self-pity ain't gonna fix a thing." Eddie didn't argue. He just nodded. He didn't come home to give excuses. He came to start over. The next morning, Eddie woke before sunrise. The world was quiet, too quiet. He stood outside on the porch, sipping burnt coffee from an old metal mug. Vivian was inside humming gospel softly as she swept the kitchen floor. But Eddie? He stared at the town that used to feel like home, and now felt like a memory. He hit the pavement early. Work. That's what he needed. That's what he came for. He walked to the hardware store, the diner, the gas station, anywhere with a help wanted sign. Everywhere he went, he heard the same thing. "We'll call you. We're full up. Position's already been filled." What they didn't say out loud. "You're a felon. We don't want your kind here." One man, Ronnie from the grocery store, smiled awkwardly as he peeled down a faded sign. "Oh, hey Eddie. Just forgot to take this down this morning. Sorry, man." Eddie just nodded. It wasn't personal. Not to them. But it was crushing all the same. Later that night, Vivian served catfish and hush puppies. Eddie sat quiet at the table. "Any luck?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "Well, try again tomorrow," she said. "The world don't owe you a thing, but that don't mean you stop knocking." After dinner, Eddie slipped out. He walked into town. Past the old stadium. The rusted bleachers. The field where his name still echoed in the stories of men who never left. He ended up at Duke's bar. The lights were low. The beer was cold. The faces familiar. Darryl, his old teammate, clapped him on the back. "Damn, Palmer. I heard you were out." They drank. Laughed. Talked about football and girls and the dumb things they used to do. "You know my boy broke your record last year?" Darryl bragged. 3 touchdowns in one game. Must run in the blood. Eddie smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Then the sheriff walked in. Cole. Tall. Solid. Calm as always. He locked eyes with Eddie. And then smiled. "Good to see you again, man. Hope you're keeping it clean." "I am," Eddie said. "Then I hope it works out for you. You deserve another shot." Just as he was about to leave, Shelley walked into the bar, same worn jeans, heavy eyeliner, and a look that said, "I've seen too much." She sidled up next to him. "You're Vivian's boy, ain't you?" "Yeah," he replied. She gave him a crooked smile. "You're not bad looking for an ex-con." Eddie raised an eyebrow. "And you're not bad at flirting for someone who smells like tequila." They both laughed. Just a little. But beneath it, Eddie saw it. Pain. Addiction. Loneliness. And one more thing. A child at home. With no one watching. Sunday morning came like clockwork. Vivian pulled open Eddie's bedroom door without knocking. "You're coming to church," she said. Eddie groaned from the bed. She raised an eyebrow. "That wasn't a question." By 10 a.m., Eddie stood stiff in the back pew of First Light Baptist. The choir sang. Voices lifted. But all Eddie heard was the whispering. People stared. Murmured behind programs. The prodigal had returned, and the town had taken note. Across the aisle sat Sam, the little boy from next door. His legs dangled above the floor. Pink shoelaces. A purple notebook in his lap with glitter on the spine. He wasn't singing. He was drawing. A fairy. With wings. The boys in the row behind him laughed. One leaned forward and whispered something cruel. Sam flinched. Shrank into himself. Eddie watched. Something twisted in his gut. After the service, folks spilled out into the parking lot, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. Eddie stood beside Vivian while Sheriff Cole made small talk with other elders. Then came Darryl, smirking, beer belly pressing against a tight polo shirt. "Hey, did you see that kid of Shelley's?" he said, laughing. "Drawing unicorns in church like he's some kind of fairy himself." Eddie's jaw tensed. Vivian gave Darryl a look that could shatter concrete. "That child's got more decency in his pinky than you got in your whole body," she snapped. Darryl raised his hands, mock defensive. "Hey, just saying. Something ain't right with that boy." Back at home, Sam sat on the porch eating a peanut butter sandwich Vivian had made. Eddie passed by, slowing for a moment. "You like dolls or something?" he asked, half curious, half suspicious. Sam looked up, calm. "I like what I like." Eddie blinked. Didn't expect that. And for the first time, he really looked at the boy. Skinny. Quiet. Fragile, but brave. More brave than most grown men. That night, over dinner, Vivian asked again if Eddie had found work. "No," he said flatly. She looked disappointed. Then she looked at Sam. "You know, Eddie," she said softly, "just because something's hard doesn't mean it's wrong." Eddie didn't answer. But he was listening. The sun was already high when Eddie pulled on his boots. Vivian handed him a grocery list and a few wrinkled bills. "Don't spend it all in one place," she teased. He gave her a tight smile. Truth was, he hated taking money from her. Even for errands. But pride didn't pay for milk. He walked to town. Same streets. Same cracked sidewalks. Same people pretending not to see him. He passed a boarded-up shop with a "Now Hiring" sign in the window. Hope flickered. He stepped inside. The manager barely looked up. "You're Eddie Palmer?" "Yeah." "Sorry," the man said. "Position's been filled." "But the sign. Forgot to take it down." Eddie nodded. Left without a word. Outside, he stood in the heat, fists in his pockets. This town wasn't going to forgive him easily. Back home, Vivian was napping on the couch. Sam sat on the floor brushing a doll's hair, completely absorbed. Eddie stared. Still not used to it. Still unsure how to react. But he didn't say anything this time. He just watched. That night at dinner, Vivian asked the question again. "Any luck?" Eddie bristled. "Why you always gotta ask like I'm not trying?" Vivian raised an eyebrow. "I asked a question. You're the one got angry." Sam looked between them, uneasy. "Y'all mad?" he whispered. Vivian softened. "No, baby. Just grown-up talk." But Eddie knew what it was. Pressure. Expectation. Disappointment. And worst of all, from the only person who ever stayed by him. After they cleared the dishes, Eddie sat alone on the porch. Lit a cigarette. Watched the stars blink on. And then he saw it. A janitor wanted sign posted on the bulletin board outside the town school. He stared at it for a long time. Then stood. And walked. The next morning, Eddie stood outside the school building. His palms were sweating. He hadn't felt nervous like this since his first high school game under the lights. He looked down at his boots. Dusty. Scuffed. He wasn't sure what he was doing here. But something inside him said try. Inside the school office, the air smelled like floor wax and paper. 2 men sat across from him at a narrow table. Mr. Forbes, the school principal, and Mr. Siebes, head of maintenance. Mr. Forbes adjusted his glasses. "You served time?" "Yes, sir." "For what?" "Burglary." "Assault," Eddie said, his voice flat but honest. "I was 22. I made a mistake. Paid for it." Mr. Siebes raised an eyebrow. "You think kids should be around someone like you?" Eddie paused. "I think kids should see what it looks like when a man turns his life around." Mr. Forbes leaned back. "You played ball, didn't you? University of Louisiana?" Eddie blinked, surprised. "Yes, sir. Before it all went bad." Forbes nodded. "My nephew still talks about the championship you almost won." Then silence. Long. Measured. Finally, Forbes said, "I believe in redemption. I'll bring your name to the board." Eddie stood, unsure if it was a rejection or hope. "Thank you," he said quietly. That evening, back at home, Eddie sat on the steps, wiping sweat off his brow. Sam came outside with 2 lemon popsicles. One extended toward Eddie. He took it. They sat in silence, feet dangling off the porch. After a moment, Sam said, "You gonna be my new dad?" Eddie choked on the popsicle. "Whoa, what?" Sam shrugged. "You fix stuff. You don't yell. You make toast good." Eddie stared at him. Then laughed. A deep, unexpected sound. "I'm not your dad, kid." Sam nodded. "But you feel like one sometimes." Later that night, the phone rang. Vivian picked it up. Her eyes lit up. She handed the phone to Eddie. "They said yes," she whispered. "You got the job." The sound of a school bell sliced through the morning. Eddie walked the halls with a mop and a cart full of supplies. Kids ran past him. Teachers nodded politely. Some didn't look at him at all. But he didn't mind. He wasn't here to be liked. He was here to clean up messes, outside and inside. At lunchtime, he spotted Sam in the cafeteria. Sitting alone. Eating a peanut butter sandwich with the crust trimmed off. A group of boys at the next table were laughing. Not the good kind. Sam shifted uncomfortably. Eddie leaned on his mop, watching. Later that day, in the hallway, one of the kids, older, mean, bumped into Sam on purpose. Books flew. Sam fell. The kid smirked. "Nice lunchbox, princess." Eddie stepped forward before he even thought. "Pick it up." The boy froze. "What?" Eddie's voice dropped low and cold. "I said pick it up." The hallway went silent. The boy bent down, picked up the books, and walked off without another word. Sam looked up. Eyes wide. Shocked. "Thanks," he said softly. Eddie nodded. "Anytime." That night at dinner, Vivian watched the 2 of them across the table, Eddie pouring milk, Sam giggling at some dumb joke. She smiled. Not the kind you wear for show. The kind that says, "Maybe it's gonna be alright after all." But small towns don't forget. And they don't forgive easily. By the next morning, whispers had started. "Why's that ex-con so close to that boy? It ain't natural. That kid don't need a criminal playing daddy." People judged what they didn't understand. And they didn't understand Eddie Palmer. Not anymore. By Friday, the whispers weren't just whispers. They were voices. Accusations. Looks that lasted a second too long. Eddie noticed it in the grocery store. The woman at the register didn't smile. The man behind him stepped back, as if parole could rub off like dirt. He heard it at the diner. "He's staying with that boy, right? Can't be right. No man with his past should be living with no kid. God help us if the school keeps him around." At school, Sam had it worse. He wore his favorite shirt, the one with the sparkly stars. And that was enough. 2 boys cornered him behind the gym. "You gonna wear a dress next week? You ain't normal. You ain't even a real boy." They shoved him. Hard. Sam didn't fight. Didn't cry. He just froze. That's when Eddie appeared. He didn't yell. Didn't threaten. He just stepped in. His eyes locked on the bigger kid. "Touch him again," he said, "and we'll be having a different kind of talk." The boy sneered. "You can't touch me, man. You're just a janitor." Eddie smiled. "Exactly. I clean up messes. Startin' with you." The boys backed off. That night, Sam was quiet. Eddie sat beside him on the couch. "You all right?" Sam shrugged. "I wish I was somebody else." Eddie stared at the wall, then looked down at the boy beside him. "Kid, there's a million people out there pretending to be something they're not. But you're the bravest person I know." Sam didn't answer, but his eyes filled with tears. And for once, he didn't wipe them away. That weekend, the school principal called. "I need you to come in," he said. "There's been complaints." Eddie closed his eyes. Here it comes. Monday morning. Eddie sat across from Principal Forbes, arms crossed, face unreadable. Forbes sighed, folding his hands. "There have been concerns. Parents talking. Staff, too." Eddie didn't blink. "Concerns about what? Me doing my job?" Forbes leaned in. "About your proximity to one student in particular." Eddie shook his head. "So I'm not allowed to help a kid when he's being bullied?" "I didn't say that. Didn't have to." Forbes hesitated. "You've done nothing wrong, Eddie. But people, they're uncomfortable. And in this town, discomfort becomes pressure. Pressure becomes policy." Eddie stood. "I've cleaned this school spotless every night. I've kept those bathrooms shinier than the principal's shoes. I ain't touched a kid, ain't raised my voice, and I sure as hell haven't done anything to be ashamed of." Forbes looked down. "I'll try to keep you on. But if it comes to a vote..." Eddie walked out. Didn't wait to hear the rest. That night, Sam sat at the kitchen table, drawing. He had glitter stuck to his cheek, and a pink marker in one hand. Eddie leaned over his shoulder. "What's that?" Sam held up the picture. "A superhero. Her name's Princess Thunder. She fights with light." Eddie chuckled. "Cool name." Sam glanced up. "You think she's weird?" Eddie knelt beside him. "Nope. I think she's got guts." The next morning, Sam went to school wearing his favorite sparkly shirt. At recess, the same group of boys circled. But this time, Sam didn't shrink. He stood tall. Didn't swing. Didn't cry. Just said one thing. "You don't get to tell me who I am." And walked away. The teacher watching from the window? Maggie Hayes. She smiled. Proud. But she also knew the storm wasn't over. Not yet. It started with a knock on the door. Late. Loud. Relentless. Eddie opened it to find Daryl, drunk, swaying, eyes red with whatever he'd been drinking, or worse. Behind him stood two of his buddies, half laughing, half watching. "You think you're a damn hero now?" Daryl spat. "Cleaning up the town? Pretending you're daddy of the year?" Eddie didn't answer. He just stepped outside. Closed the door behind him. "Go home, Daryl. You're drunk." Daryl shoved him. "You ain't nothin'. You're still that scared little punk who cried in court. And now you're raising a freak." That was the line. Eddie's fists clenched. "Say that again," he growled. Daryl leaned close. "I said that boy's a disgrace. And so are you," Eddie snapped. He drove his fist into Daryl's jaw once, twice. The other men jumped in, pulling him off, yelling. The porch light clicked on. Sam stood there, eyes wide, frozen. Eddie stopped. Everything went still. Sheriff Cole showed up 20 minutes later. Didn't even put cuffs on him. Just looked tired. "You know this puts everything at risk." Eddie nodded. "I know." Cole shook his head. "You were doing good, man. Why'd you let him pull you back down?" Eddie looked away. "Because someone needed to stand up for that kid. And no one else was." Back inside, Sam sat on the couch holding a pillow tight to his chest. Eddie sat beside him. "I'm sorry you saw that." Sam looked up. "I'm not." Eddie blinked. "You're not?" Sam shook his head. "You did what no one else ever does." He leaned into Eddie's side. "You stayed." The knock came soft this time. Just after sunset. Eddie opened the door. And froze. It was Shelley. Eyes sunken. Cheeks hollow. Hair tangled. And behind her, a trash bag stuffed with clothes. "I came to get my son." Sam stood at the top of the stairs. He didn't move. He didn't run to her. Didn't say a word. Just stared. Shelley stepped inside without waiting for permission. "I'm clean," she said quickly. "I've been in treatment. I'm better. I can take care of him now." Eddie didn't believe her. Not really. But the law didn't care about what he believed. Only what it could prove. Sam packed in silence. Eddie knelt beside him. "You okay, bud?" Sam didn't answer. He folded his favorite princess t-shirt. Tucked it gently beside his ukulele. "Will I see you again?" he whispered. Eddie swallowed hard. "I hope so." Sam looked at him. "But will you try?" Eddie nodded. "Every day." They stood in the driveway as Shelley loaded up the car. Sam turned to Eddie. Hugged him so tight it hurt. And whispered something in his ear. "You were the only one who ever made me feel normal." Then he got in the car. And was gone. The house felt empty. Too quiet. Eddie sat on the porch till midnight. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared at the stars. The phone rang just after 8 a.m. It was Maggie Hayes. Her voice was sharp. Urgent. "Shelley hasn't brought Sam to school in 3 days." Eddie sat upright in bed. "What do you mean?" She pulled him out. Said they were moving in with someone named Jerry. Something didn't feel right. Eddie was already putting on his boots. He drove through town. Past the trailer park. Found Shelley's unit. He knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, louder. A neighbor peeked out her window. "She's not here. They packed up 2 nights ago." "The guy she's with?" "He ain't right." Eddie drove. Out past the edge of town. Through roads with no signs. Then he saw it. A battered trailer behind a gas station, surrounded by junk and silence. He stepped out. The door was cracked open. Inside, Sam sat alone on the floor. Eyes red. Holding a broken lunchbox. When he saw Eddie, he didn't cry. He just said, "He called me disgusting." Eddie's heart nearly gave out. Where's your mom? Sam shrugged. She left this morning. Said she'd be back, but Jerry said she's gone for good. Eddie scooped him up. Let's go. On the drive back, Sam stared out the window. You think I'll always be like this? Too much for everybody? Eddie didn't answer right away. Then he said, No, kid. You're just enough for the right people. But the moment they pulled into town, lights flashed behind them. Sheriff Cole's cruiser. Eddie stepped out slowly. Cole looked tired. Sad. You can't just take him, man. I wasn't gonna leave him with that monster. I know, Cole said. I know you weren't. Back at the station, Eddie sat in cuffs. Sam sat in the hallway, swinging his feet, holding Eddie's old football keychain. Then the office door opened. Shelley walked in. But something was different. Her face was softer. Her hands were shaking. I'm not ready to be his mom, she said. Everyone went still. I thought I could do it. But I can't. Not yet. Not the way he needs. She looked at Eddie. Will you take care of him? It took 3 weeks. 3 home visits. 2 background checks. 1 court date. But in the end, it happened. Eddie Palmer became Sam's legal guardian. The courthouse was quiet that morning. Rain tapped softly against the windows as the judge signed the final papers. Eddie didn't say much. Didn't need to. He just looked at Sam. And Sam looked back. Their silence was louder than any gavel. They walked out into the rain without umbrellas. Didn't care. Sam reached for Eddie's hand. Held it tight. That afternoon, back at the house, Eddie found Sam sitting in Vivian's old chair. The boy was flipping through an old cookbook. What are you doing? Sam shrugged. I thought we could try making her gumbo. You know, so it still smells like her here. Eddie didn't say a word. Just grabbed the pot from under the sink. All right then. Chef Sam. Let's get started. That night, they ate together under yellow kitchen light. The gumbo wasn't perfect. Too salty. Too thick. But it was warm. And it was theirs. Later, while taking out the trash, Eddie opened the mailbox. Inside was a single envelope. Thick. Cream-colored. No return address. He opened it. Inside, a letter. Handwritten. Elegant cursive. Dear Sam. Your letter made us cry, the good kind. Welcome to the Flying Princess Penelope Club. Eddie smiled. Then laughed. Then ran inside. It was almost Halloween. The school sent out flyers. Costume contest. Pizza. Dancing. Sam bounced through the house with excitement. I know what I want to be, he said, waving a picture. It was a princess. Princess Penelope. Tiara. Wings. Glitter. Eddie looked at the paper. Then looked at Sam. His heart stuttered. At the store, Sam picked out a dress. Pink satin. Puffy shoulders. Sequins everywhere. A woman nearby stared. Then shook her head. Shame, she muttered under her breath. That poor boy. Eddie heard her. And for a split second, he almost said nothing. But then, he turned. Loud and clear. He's not a poor boy. He's a brave one. At home, Sam twirled in front of the mirror. You sure I should wear this? He asked. Eddie sat on the bed. I'm sure you should wear what makes you feel like you. Sam smiled so wide it hurt. The night of the party, the school gym buzzed with music and pizza grease and flashing Halloween lights. Kids wore capes, masks, fake muscles and vampire teeth. Then the doors opened. And Sam walked in his princess dress. The room went quiet. For a second too long. Then a voice shouted. What's he supposed to be? A joke? The laughter started. Eddie stepped forward. But before he could say a word, Principal Forbes entered the gym, dressed head to toe, as a fairy godmother, wand and all. He raised his voice. You know what Halloween's for? Being whoever you want to be, even if it's just for one night. Silence. Then applause. Small at first. Then louder. And Sam? He stood taller, lifted his chin, and kept walking forward. Later that night, in the truck, Eddie looked over. You were amazing. Sam giggled. You too. Me? Why? Because you didn't flinch. Eddie smiled. I was just following your lead. It started with another letter. This one, from the state. Custody under review. Hearing scheduled. Eddie sat on the porch, the envelope trembling in his hand. Sam came outside, dragging his backpack. What's wrong? Eddie forced a smile. Nothing we can't handle. At the courthouse, everything felt cold. Wooden benches. Fluorescent lights. People in suits with no names, flipping through papers like lives weren't at stake. The social worker cleared her throat. Mr. Palmer has a criminal record. A violent past. No blood relation to the child. She looked up. He's unstable. Eddie stood. His hands weren't shaking. Not this time. I'm not perfect, he said. I've made mistakes I'll regret for the rest of my life. But that boy saved me. And I show up for him. Every day. The judge nodded slowly. Is the child present? They called Sam to the front. He looked so small walking across the courtroom. Feet too quiet. Hands too still. He sat. Swung his legs a little. The judge leaned in. Sam, who do you want to live with? Sam looked down. Then up. With the person who made me feel brave. Silence. Then, with Eddie. The judge looked at the file. Then at Eddie. Then at Sam. And nodded. Custody granted. Eddie sat back. Exhaled. Didn't cry. But inside? A lifetime cracked open. They moved slow. Box by box. Room by room. The house that once belonged to Vivian now echoed with new sound. Laughter. Music. Silence that didn't feel lonely. Eddie found Sam one morning, standing by the window. What you thinking about? He asked. Sam turned, grinning. Nothing. Eddie knew better. You worried? Sam nodded. Little bit. Eddie knelt beside him. You ever feel scared? Just remember one thing. Sam tilted his head. Eddie smiled. We're not going anywhere. Not anymore. They painted the kitchen yellow. Burned the gumbo twice. Hung up a drawing of Princess Thunder on the fridge. At night, Sam read Eddie bedtime stories. Because sometimes adults need them too. One day, a package arrived. Inside was a sparkly sash. And a letter. Dear Sam, we're proud of you. Princess Penelope says real courage is wearing your heart outside your chest and still showing up. Sam looked up. Is it okay if I wear it to school? Eddie nodded. I think it's time they saw the real you. Later that week, Eddie got a call. It was from the high school football coach. We heard you're good with kids, he said. We could use an assistant coach. Just part-time. Eddie smiled. I know someone who'd love that. And on the first Friday of fall, the stadium lights glowed again. Eddie stood on the sidelines. Sam sat in the front row, wearing the sash and a tiara. Someone behind him muttered something under their breath. Sam turned around. You don't scare me. Then turned back forward and smiled. Because this was his home now.
If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one. Thank you for watching.